Navy's carrier-borne Air Force prepares for one of the series of strikes that soften up the Philippines for the Army's amphibious invasion. Since August 30th, when Admiral William F. Halsey's Third Fleet began operations in the Marianas, carrier planes have blasted Jap defenses, shipping, and air power throughout the archipelago. Dive bombers, torpedo planes, and strafers operate from the flight decks of the carriers with record speed. Possessed of great mobility through its accompanying supply and repair ships, the Carrier Task Force maintains an uninterrupted series of attacks. Carrier aircraft are credited with the destruction of 2,500 enemy planes in a 2-month period. Our losses were approximately 300 carrier planes, making the ratio higher than 8 to 1. Plane handling crews bucked the propeller blast as they moved the aircraft into takeoff position. After receiving the takeoff signal, a fighter goes aloft. Other craft ride up the elevator from the hangar deck to the flight deck. Just as soon as the propeller wash of the plane ahead has been dissipated, the next member of the carrier squadron leaves the forward runway. Forming for the attack. Target, Mindanao Island and vital shipping lanes at the southern end of the Philippines. In addition to the primary mission, the Mindanao strike tends further to confuse the enemy, who's never sure when and where an amphibious assault will follow the strafing and bombing forays. Beginning 10th October, the attacks move into Japanese home waters. This time, the destinations for carrier aircraft of Vice Admiral Mark A. Mitcher's command are the Ryukyu Islands and Formosa. Targets, Japanese shipping and major military and naval installations. The Ryukyus guard the southern approaches to Japan proper and are important as staging and communication centers. Formosa, one of the most strongly fortified areas in the Japanese Empire, bars the lanes to the China coast. It protects Japan's lifeline between the homeland and her new colonial possessions to the south. The carrier planes blast these enemy bases through 10 days prior to the first landings in the Philippines. Our aircraft sight a U.S. submarine on regular patrol deep in Jap waters. The subs contributed to the mass destruction of enemy shipping. Hundreds of vessels were either sunk or damaged in the Ryukyu Formosa strikes. This is in addition to extensive damage to ground installations. Mission successfully accomplished, the planes return to their carriers. Our losses have been light. In the Ryukyu's raids, there are known to have been 14 aircraft and 9 aircraft personnel. As the plane approaches the carrier's stern, wheels are down. So is the hook trailing from the tip of its tail. This hook is caught in the cable of the arresting gear, pulling the plane to a halt. Just forward of the last landing wire are the steel barriers, which prevent a plane that has missed the gear from racing down the deck toward the parked planes. The signal officer guides the landings. The large paddles he manipulates are the pilot's instructions as to what he must do to get the plane aboard safely. This means cut the gun and land. As one plane hits the deck, its landing gear gives way. This time, the signal officer indicates to the pilot that he can't make it. The last of the carrier-borne aircraft return. They come in against a 25-knot wind, with the carrier moving away from them at about the same speed. The planes themselves land at something like 100 miles an hour. The plane handling crews take over as the aircraft are berthed for routine checking and necessary repairs. The pilots report for interrogation. Down to the hangar deck to await the next order to launch planes. Meanwhile, far to the south, General MacArthur prepares to return at last to the Philippines.